The massive crystal tiers of the Valachi ballroom's chandelier bled amber light across the gathered elite, illuminating the dangerous faces of the coast's most feared syndicates. I stood at the peak of the marble staircase, tucked into the velvet shadows, my pulse thrumming against my throat as I smoothed the midnight black fabric over my hips one last time. This was the precipice. After tonight, there was no turning back. The gown was less a garment and more a provocation, midnight black velvet that clung to my silhouette like a second skin. I had spent hours preparing this trap. My dark hair was swept into an elegant, loose arrangement, and my makeup was sharp, with mercurial eyes and a deep plum lip. I looked like a forbidden vow wrapped in velvet. I was about to walk into a den of wolves looking like a feast. More importantly, I was about to walk into the only room that mattered, where Killian Vane would finally be forced to see me. Taking a measured breath, I began my descent. The rhythmic strike of my stilettos against the marble cut through the low hum of conversation like a countdown. But my gaze was anchored to only one man. Killian stood like a monolith near the bar, his lethal frame encased in obsidian suit. His face was a mask of cold discipline until our eyes locked. For 13 years, this man had called me sister to satisfy my father's code. But the man staring at me now didn't want to protect me. He looked like he wanted to seize me right there in front of the world and burn everything else to the ground. "Friends, allies," my father's voice boomed, shattering the tension. "It is my greatest honor to announce the union that will secure our future. My daughter, Bianca Valachi, is now promised to Julian Vane." The room erupted into applause as Julian materialized from the crowd. He slid the heavy, cold diamond ring onto my finger, and the weight of it felt like a shackle. I felt nothing but the heat of Killian's fury behind me. He was staring at the ring on my hand as if he were deciding how best to crush the finger it sat upon. "Congratulations, brother," Julian said, extending a hand to Killian. Killian stared at the offered hand for a heartbeat too long, his eyes blazing with a lethal jealousy that promised a massacre. "She's too young for this life," he rasped, his voice a low, vibrating threat. As I looked into his black, jealous eyes, I knew I had won. I had broken the brother. Now, I just had to survive the ghost. The toast began 3 minutes after the announcement. My father raised his crystal tumbler and the room followed. Julian's arm snaked around my waist, his fingers splaying possessively across the velvet. I leaned into him, tilting my head so the diamond caught the chandelier light and threw fractured rainbows across the crowd. I watched Killian. He stood rigid, a glass of whiskey clutched in his hand, jaw locked tight. When Julian pressed his lips to my temple, something in Killian snapped. The crack was delicate, a sound that shouldn't have been audible over celebration, but I heard it clearly. The crystal in Killian's hand fractured, blood welled between his fingers, dripping onto marble in fat drops. No one noticed, too drunk on power and champagne to see the family's most dangerous weapon hemorrhaging control. But I saw. I always saw him. Our eyes met, and his look was pure violence, not protective fury, savage jealousy. His lips barely moved. "You're mine." I smiled and raised my left hand to brush hair from my face, making the ring impossible to miss. His eyes tracked the movement like a predator, his free hand curling into a white-knuckled fist. "Bianca, you look radiant. My father is discussing the wedding date, early spring." Spring. 3 months, 90 days for Killian to claim me or lose me forever. How lovely, I said. I can hardly wait. Killian turned and walked out, leaving blood drops like breadcrumbs through a nightmare. No one stopped him. The ghost didn't answer to anyone except my father. Your brother seems unwell, Julian observed. I understand you two are quite close. Close. What an inadequate word for what we were. Live wire and gasoline, match and powder keg. Blade against throat with just enough pressure to draw blood, but not kill. Not yet. He'll adjust, I said. Killian is nothing if not adaptable. I found Killian 2 hours later in the family library. He stood at the window, injured hand wrapped in cloth already blooming red. His jacket hung over a chair. Shirt sleeves revealed scar-mapped forearms. "You're bleeding through the bandage," I said, closing the door. He didn't turn. Where should I be? Downstairs letting Julian paw at me, or in my room admiring my new jewelry? His shoulders tensed. I moved closer, close enough to smell gunpowder and cedar, and something darker. "Bianca, stop." "Stop what?" I was near now. "Stop reminding you I'm engaged? Stop wearing the ring? Or stop pretending you give a damn about me as a sister?" He spun, hands on my shoulders, backing me against the bookshelves hard enough to make volumes shudder. His face was inches from mine, breath harsh and controlled. "You want to know what I give a damn about? Keeping you alive. The oath I swore to your father when I was 8 and had nowhere else to go. The family that gave me a name when I had nothing." "Liar!" The word landed like a slap. His fingers tightened, bruising. "You care about owning things, and you can't stand that Daddy found someone else to own me." His hand slammed the shelf beside my head, leaving crimson on leather-bound Dante, our own inferno. "You don't know what you're talking about."
"Then enlighten me, brother." I mocked the word. "Tell me how you felt watching Julian put this ring on my finger." I raised my hand between us. "Tell me it didn't make you want to rip his throat out." Silence. Absolute. Killian stared at the ring, expression shifting through a dozen emotions before settling on something raw and hungry. That ring should be at the bottom of the ocean with the hand it's on. There he is, not the loyal soldier, the jealous bastard who's been watching me for 13 years like a wolf watches a lamb and calling it protection. If you can't stand people who use loyalty as a cage to control others, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Type, "Nobody deserves that," because what happened next only got worse. His hand cupped my jaw, thumb brushing my lip with contradicting gentleness. "You have no idea what I am, what I've done to keep you safe, what I've sacrificed, who I've killed, and you want to call it jealousy? 13 years of—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "Of what?" The library door opened. My father's voice cut through. "Bianca, Julian is asking for you. Killian, we need to discuss security arrangements." Killian stepped back, cold professionalism sliding into place seamlessly. But I saw the tremor in his hand, his chest rising too quickly, wildness he couldn't contain. "Of course, Don Valachi." My father's gaze moved between us, shrewd and calculating, understanding invisible threads of power, loyalty, betrayal. I walked past Killian without a glance. At the doorway, I paused. "You should change that bandage. You're still bleeding."
Morning light was cruel. I woke to Julian's text. "Good morning, beautiful. I've scheduled your first fitting for 11 a.m. My mother is very excited to meet you. Jay." The machinery of my arranged future grinding forward. A fitting, his mother, my cage clicking into place. A note slipped under my door, sharp, aggressive handwriting. I'll drive you. Barrage, 10:30, K. Addressed carefully, cream silk and tailored black pants, respectability. The ring sat like an accusation, and I twisted it compulsively. Killian waited in the garage at exactly 10:30, leaning against a black Mercedes. New bandage, pristine, black t-shirt and jeans, shoulder holster visible and making him more dangerous than any suit. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Ready? As I'll ever be. The drive started in silence, buildings blurred past. I tried not to remember his hands, his voice. You didn't have to do this. I'm sure Father has other men who could play chauffeur. He does, but none of them are your brother. That word again. Weapon. Right. How could I forget? His jaw tightened. 10 minutes of tense silence before. What were you trying to accomplish last night? I don't know what you mean. Yes, you do. The dress, the performance, the way you kept... He stopped, knuckles white on the wheel. The way I kept what? Flaunting the ring? Letting Julian touch me? Bianca. Because if it bothers you, maybe you should ask yourself why. He pulled over abruptly. Anonymous side street, tall buildings blocking sun. Killian killed the engine and turned, expression feral. You want to know why? You want me to say it out loud, to put words to something that's been eating me alive since you were 16, and I realized I couldn't look at you the same way. My heart thundered. Yes, say it. I can't, because the second I do, I become a traitor. He laughed bitterly. I become exactly what I am. And what's that? He stared, breathing harsh, then touched the ring, thumb tracing the diamond with hatred. A man who's in love with his sister. A man who's been in hell for 13 years. A man who spent every day since you turned 18 trying to find reasons not to steal you away, and damn the consequences. Air too thin. Killian. No. He pulled back, putting distance between us. You wanted truth? There it is. I'm in love with you. I've been in love with you for years, and now I have to watch you marry Julian fucking Vane and smile about it because that's what loyalty demands. He started the car, movements jerky. Congratulations, you broke me. Now, let's get you to your fitting. The fitting was a nightmare. Lace and tulle and Julian's mother, Victoria, severe, evaluating me like a broodmare. Comments about my hips, posture, smile, picking me apart while seamstresses pinned fabric and I stood numb and hollow. Killian waited in the car 3 hours. When I emerged, he was exactly as I'd left him, rigid, staring at nothing. We didn't speak on the drive home. What could I say after he detonated our entire relationship in one confession? Back at the manor, I went straight to my room, stripped off the silk blouse, the pants, stood in my bathroom staring at my reflection. The ring caught light, throwing sparkles across white tile like shrapnel. I twisted it off and set it on the counter, just for a moment. Just to see what my hand looked like without the weight of someone else's claim. I showered, changed into sleep clothes, crawled into bed. Hours passed. Dinner came and went. I told the staff I wasn't hungry. Night fell, and I lay there in darkness, thinking about Killian's confession, about the look in his eyes when he'd said he'd been in hell for 13 years. Near midnight, I dragged myself to the bathroom. The ring
was gone. My heart stopped. I'd left it right there on the counter, and now, had he taken it? Had Killian actually stolen into my room and taken Julian's ring? I searched everywhere. Counter, floor, drawer, trash. Nothing. It had vanished like it had never existed. A knock at my door made me freeze. I opened it to find Killian standing in the hallway, still dressed, looking like he hadn't slept either. In his hand, the ring. "Looking for this?" His voice was flat, but his eyes burned. "You stole it!" "I found it abandoned on your bathroom counter. Careless, Bianca. What would Julian think if he knew you just left it lying around? Give it back."
Make me. He held it up between thumb and forefinger, the diamond catching hallway light. Or better yet, tell me why you took it off. Tell me what you were thinking when you looked at your bare hand. If you believe that love shouldn't be a transaction or a business deal, hit that subscribe button. People like Julian won't, and you need to hear what she did about it. I wanted to see. I stopped. What? I wanted to see what it felt like to not belong to anyone. Something in his expression shifted, softened. You've never belonged to Julian. You know that. And who do I belong to, Killian? You? I laughed bitterly. You won't even touch me. You confess your love in a car and then treat me like a stranger. You steal my engagement ring but won't do anything about it? Because doing something about it means burning down everything your father built. It means civil war. It means choosing me over your precious loyalty. I stepped closer. And we both know you'll never do that. He stared at me, jaw working. Then he reached for my left hand and slid the ring back onto my finger with deliberate slowness. Wear it, he said quietly. Wear it and think about the fact that I'm the only one who knows you took it off.
The charity gala arrived 3 days later. Another excuse for the families to gather, to see and be seen, to negotiate in shadowed corners while pretending to care about orphaned children. I wore burgundy silk that moved like water, and Julian was attentive in a way that made my skin crawl. His hand never left my waist, his lips constantly at my ear with meaningless observations. Killian was working security, positioned near the main entrance like a sentinel. Our eyes met once across the crowded ballroom, and the look he gave me was combustible. "Dance with me," Julian said, leading me onto the floor without waiting for an answer. His cologne was expensive and cloying, nothing like the gunpowder and cedar I'd been craving for days. "You're quiet tonight," he observed as we swayed. "Just thinking about the wedding. Having second thoughts?" His smile was sharp. "Your father wouldn't be pleased." "No second thoughts, just processing." His hand slid lower on my back, possessive and proprietary. "Good, because I've been very patient, Bianca, very understanding, but I expect my wife to be enthusiastic about our arrangement." The threat was clear. I was merchandise, and he expected a return on his investment. "Of course," I murmured. His hand slid lower still, fingers splaying across my hip in a way that crossed every line. I tensed, trying to step back, but he held firm. "Julian, I think it's time we—" He didn't finish. Killian materialized behind him, grip on Julian's shoulder so tight I saw him wince. "Vanek, your father needs you. Business matter. Urgent." Julian's jaw tightened. "I'm occupied." "It's urgent," Killian repeated, and his voice dropped into a register that promised violence. "Now." For a moment I thought Julian might refuse, thought he might call Killian's bluff and create a scene,
But something in Killian's eyes, that lethal jealousy barely restrained, made him reconsider. "Fine," he released me, smoothing his jacket. "We'll finish this later." As Julian walked away, Killian's hand replaced his at my waist, steadying me. The difference was electric. Julian's touch felt like ownership, but Killian's felt like coming home. "You okay?" His voice was low, just for me. I know what he was doing. I saw. His fingers flexed against my hip. Every instinct I have is screaming at me to break every bone in his hands. "Why don't you?"
Killian led me through servants' corridors to the manor's private gym, a converted ballroom full of equipment and training mats where he spent hours working out frustrations he couldn't name. He locked the door behind us, and the click echoed like a gunshot. "You can't keep doing this," I said, wrapping my arms around myself. "You can't keep intervening and then walking away. You can't keep—" "Can't keep what? Protecting you?" "Protecting me or possessing me?" I spun to face him. "Because there's a difference, Killian, and I'm not sure you know which one you're doing." "You think I don't know the difference?" He moved toward me, predatory. "You think I don't lie awake every night trying to figure out where protection ends and obsession begins? I've been drawing that line since you were 16 years old, and every year it gets harder to see." "Then stop drawing it!" "Bianca, I mean it. Stop pretending. Stop hiding behind duty and loyalty and all the other excuses you've built. You love me. You said it yourself. So stop treating me like I'm some fragile thing you need to guard and start treating me like I'm yours. You're not mine." But his voice cracked on the words. "You're Julian's. You're wearing his ring. In 3 months, you'll be wearing his name. Only if you let that happen." He laughed, sharp, bitter, broken. "Let it happen? Like I have a choice? Like your father would just smile and nod if I told him I wanted to marry his daughter instead? I'm an orphan, and weapon he picked up off the street and sharpened. I have no name, no family, no claim to anything except the blood on my hands. You have me." The words hung between us, simple and devastating. Killian stared at me like I'd shot him, chest heaving, hands clenched so tight I could see tendons standing out in his forearms. "Say that again."
You have me. You've always had me, since I was 16 and realized the way you looked at me had changed. Since I understood that the thing between us wasn't brotherly and never had been. You have me, Killian. You just have to be brave enough to take me. Then let it burn. His kiss was 13 years of repression detonating at once, rough and hungry and absolutely claiming. His hands were in my hair, tilting my head back to deepen the angle, and I was drowning in him, in the taste of desperation and desire finally unleashed. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard, foreheads pressed together in the darkness. "I'm going to destroy him," Killian whispered against my lips. "Julian, the Alliance, all of it. I'm going to burn it down from the inside until there's nothing left but ashes." "How?" "I'm the ghost, remember? Your father trained me to infiltrate, to sabotage, to destroy empires from the shadows. Julian Vane has no idea what's coming for him." The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in destruction. Killian moved to the Vane organization like a plague, and I watched from my gilded cage as Julian's empire began to crumble. First, shipments went missing, containers of merchandise that vanished from docks without a trace. Julian blamed port security, never suspecting his fiancée's brother had rerouted everything to rival families. Then financial records disappeared.
ledgers that could prove tax fraud, wire transfers that linked the Vanex to trafficking, all of it copied and stored in locations only Killian knew. Insurance. Julian became paranoid, suspicious. He accused his own lieutenants of betrayal, creating rifts in his organization that Killian exploited ruthlessly. I played my part perfectly, the innocent bride-to-be, confused by the chaos, seeking comfort from my protective older brother. "I don't understand what's happening," I told Julian over dinner one night, 2 weeks before the wedding. "Your father seems so stressed." "Business complications." His hand found my thigh under the table, squeezing possessively. "Nothing for you to worry about." But he was worried. I could see it in the tension around his eyes, the way he drank more than usual, how he'd started double-checking locks and looking over his shoulder. Killian had gotten into his head, and Julian didn't even know it. That night, after Julian dropped me at the manor, I found Killian in the library. Our library now, the place where everything had started to unravel. "3 shipments gone," I said, closing the door. "His father's furious."
Good. Killian didn't look up from the documents spread across the desk. "By the time I'm done, the Vane family won't have the resources to honor a marriage contract, let alone wage a war." I moved behind him, hands on his shoulders. "And then what?" "Then I go to your father with evidence that Julian has been compromising family security, that his organization is so weak it's become a liability, that the marriage should be dissolved before the Valachis are dragged down with them." "Will he believe you?" "He'll believe the evidence, and once the contract is void—" He turned in the chair, pulling me onto his lap. "Once you're free, I'm taking you away from all of this." "What?" "You think I'm going to claim you just to keep you in this world, in this life?" His hands framed my face. "I'm getting you out, Bianca. Somewhere your father can't reach, somewhere we can finally be together," I finished. "Somewhere we can be together without the lies." "Exactly." I kissed him then, soft and slow, the opposite of that desperate first time. This was a promise, a future. "I love you," I whispered against his mouth. "I should have said it before. I love you." His arms tightened around me. "I know. I've always known."
The wedding was 4 days away when everything exploded. I woke to shouting, my father's voice thundering through the manor, followed by crashes and masculine arguing. I threw on a robe and ran downstairs to find chaos. Julian was in the foyer, face purple with rage, his father beside him looking murderous. My father stood on the stairs, Killian at his right hand like always, but something was different. Something had shifted. "You're calling off the wedding," Julian snarled, "after everything my family has invested." "Your family has invested nothing but liability," my father said coldly. "The missing shipments, the compromised accounts, the federal investigation your carelessness attracted, your toxic Vanek, and I don't chain my daughter to a sinking ship." "This is bullshit!" Julian's eyes found me on the upper landing. "Bianca, tell him you want to marry me." All eyes turned to me, my father calculating, Julian desperate, Killian barely breathing. "I don't," I said clearly. "I never did." Julian's expression twisted. "You bitch. You've been playing me this entire time, haven't you, while your guard dog sabotaged everything I built." The accusation hung in the air. My father's gaze swung to Killian, sharp and dangerous. "Is this true?" Killian didn't hesitate. "Yes." The admission rippled through the room like a shockwave. My father's face went absolutely still, the most dangerous expression he could wear. "You sabotaged an alliance I brokered. You destroyed months of negotiations." "I did what I had to do to protect what's mine," Killian said. His voice was steady, fearless. "Julian Vanek is a weak,
compromised liability who treats Bianca like property. I wasn't going to stand by and watch him destroy her.
What's yours? My father descended one step. Explain that. I'm in love with her. I have been for years. And before you order my execution, you should know that I've already copied everything, every family secret, every account number, every piece of leverage you've spent decades building. It's stored in 3 locations with instructions to release if anything happens to me. Killian's jaw set. I'm not asking for your blessing. I'm telling you how this ends. Either Bianca comes with me and we disappear, or you pull that trigger and watch your empire burn. The silence was absolute. My father stared at Killian like he'd never seen him before, this weapon he'd created finally turning on its master. You ungrateful, Killian interrupted. I'm grateful for everything, the training, the name, the family, but I'm done being your ghost. I'm done pretending she's my sister when she's the only thing I've ever wanted that's mine. My father looked at me. Is this what you want? I walked down the stairs, past Julian's murderous glare, past the armed men tensing near doorways. I went straight to Killian and took his hand. Yes. My father's expressions cycled through rage, calculation, resignation. Finally, he looked at Julian. Get out. The contract is void. If you or your family come near my daughter again, the ghost's last mission will be erasing your entire bloodline.
We left before sunrise. Killian had planned everything. Fake passports, offshore accounts he'd been building for months, a house in Portugal where no one would look for the prodigal son and the Mafia princess. As the plane lifted off, I watched the city disappear beneath us, the only home I'd ever known, the family I was leaving behind, the life I was trading for a future with a man who'd spent 13 years learning to kill for me before he learned to love me. Regrets? Killian asked, fingers laced with mine. I looked at our joined hands. No ring, no claim except the one we'd chosen. Not one. Your father will come around eventually. He always liked me better than Julian anyway. Is that why he let us go? He let us go because he's a pragmatist. The Vane alliance was dead anyway, and having his best enforcer out in the world with all his secrets is better than having a dead traitor and a vengeful daughter. He'll use us eventually, call in favors, ask for intelligence. It's how this world works. And you'll help him? Selectively. He pressed a kiss to my temple. I'm done being anyone's weapon, but I'm not stupid enough to cut all ties either. Your father is still the most powerful Don on the eastern seaboard. Better to be his occasional asset than his permanent enemy. The plane leveled out, and I leaned into him, breathing in gunpowder and cedar and freedom. So what now? Now? He turned my face to his, eyes warm in a way I'd never seen. Now we figure out who we are when we're not playing roles, when you're not the Mafia princess and I'm not the ghost, when we're just Killian and Bianca, 2 people who probably shouldn't love each other as much as we do. I like the sound of that. Yeah? Yeah. He kissed me then, soft and slow and full of promise, the first kiss of our real lives, the first moment of the future we'd burned everything to claim. Somewhere far below, the sun was rising over the city we'd left behind. The Valachi manor would be stirring, the families would be gossiping, Julian Vane would be plotting revenge he'd never get to execute. But none of it mattered. We were free. And after 13 years of jealousy, obsession, and lethal devotion disguised as family loyalty, free was all we'd ever needed to be.